topic all immediately. So to follow them better, what I'm going to say later, to try to support this thesis. Because, as you know, commons in Europe or in the North is a broad concept, but it's a bit the South, right? Generally, commons have people think the commons have disappeared, they don't exist anymore. And they have reinvented the commons recently. Some of you are Europeans, so you know. At the beginning of this century, the commons came up as something of fashion, you know, they became fashionable. It was something new, something that had just was born. But the commons have always existed. Commons are the rights of the people to survive on nature. And nature is what gives us the possibility to survive. If we didn't have water, water is not built in a laboratory, it's not constructed in a laboratory, it's not manufactured. You cannot manufacture water. It can only be saved. It's a renewable resource. It's not a short of resources. Shortage is a concept only of capitalism. Capitalism makes everything short. It increases demand to the point where it's short. But in nature, nothing is short. There is enough for everybody. There is enough for everybody. But under capitalism, which wants to maximize profit, then resources become short. But they are not short. They are renewable or not renewable. Water is a renewable resource because each year it rains, and if water were well managed, were not wasted, there would be enough for everybody. But this is not the case. First of all, this is not written over there, but I have to. First of all, only 3% of the water on the world is drinkable, the rest is salted and requires so much energy to distillate the water that it's almost impossible. So water is not unlimited and renewable, so each year water comes again. So if it were safe, we would have enough. But this is not the case because 70% of drinkable water goes into agriculture. Industrial agriculture requires 70% of all this water. 70%, which means that it's like a tsunami. Because if you put so much water on the ground, the territory, the land becomes loses its fertility because the water washes down and takes fertility within to the ocean, and this is all waste. So the thesis I want to present to you today, and that I have also argued in my book, which is around, which I must be later translated in English. I propose the nature-related resources, the one that are nature-related I hint at WTO. In other words, I hint at something which everybody knows. The World Organization Treaty, the International Organization of Commerce, which says trade-related. We have to say nature-related, which is very important in trade. Nature-related, you relate to something which really is important, nature. Without nature, we can live. Water, air also cannot live in another. And even energy. You see, when you build, let's say, perhaps it's not the right word, energy, like we build in Japan, you see what happens. Okay? You saw what happened. Those nuclear plants were safe, but the electricity went out, and they couldn't refrigerate the water, the nuclear plant, and so the plant is going to explode. You understand what I'm talking about? The English is not perfect. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So they didn't think that the problem would arise at the same time than a tsunami. And so the combination of nature, and you can forecast everything. So the plant was built with the precaution, but those precautions couldn't realize because the electricity went off because of the tsunami and the earthquake. I don't know exactly which of the two created this problem. So much so that the United States is sending them the refrigerating because this is what they need, because I don't have electricity now. Okay, so I say that my thesis is that nature-related resources, that commons related to nature. When I say related to nature, I immediately want to also to add that in order to make it more, a bit more clear, because I want to say that I refer to 4 elements, not 4 resources, for the 4 natural elements identified by the Greek philosopher Empedocles in the 4th century before Christ. So I'm telling you that first thing we should have is memory to know what happened yesterday, because the future cannot be built back on the past. Otherwise it has no ground. Obviously it's not enough. The future is never simply put to the past, but it has to be built on the past. So Empedocles, the philosopher, Greek philosopher living in south of Italy, had identified the basic elements, not resources, elements of nature in air, water, land. When I say land, I say territory, agriculture, biofuels, whatever, all that is land. There are many, many different, this is why the property law is so important, because land is the basic, and it's not renewable, and it's, you know, okay. So land and fire energy. So when you think of the commons as nature-related, as those commons which are related to nature, we have to think in terms of those 4 elements, because otherwise we get lost. And those 4 elements, not as they were at the time of Empedocles, as they are now, because the situation changed. The elements remain the same, but the situation with which they are confronted vary a lot through time, because the intervention of human beings transform those elements, and we have to take care of the new form under which water, land, air, and electricity show up, because otherwise they're mad. Okay? But they're still for those 4 elements, they're not others. Okay? When I say land, I also say something, I forgot, minerals. Minerals are in the underground. And this is very, very important. Much of the development of the South now is around this issue. Who is going to get those minerals? The villages who live on those territories and live on those resources, or the national government who want those resources to make steel mills and other industrial plants to become international players. International players, this is what it is. And they make another break. I have heard recently, everybody knows, that 80% of food eaten in Brazil is a big country, so 80% comes from local agriculture, small-scale agriculture. So all the question of the exports of agriculture, biofuels, blah, 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 is done for power politics, not for the people, because the people eat 80% of what they eat is grown by small producers into the country. Okay, so I'm trying to propose, my proposal is that the commons related to nature can become the backbone, this is important, and also subsistence, which will come to later, the backbone of an alternative social order. An alternative social order. The social order is not only an economy. The social order is much more than economy. I don't know how many of you have read Polanyi, Carlo Polanyi.
Yeah.
So if you, in Italy nobody has, because it's not in the list, you know.
It's not
the problem of the students. Yes, but you are not.
I read it in the exam.
Sure, late exam. But you don't find it in the list.
No.
So, a social order is not an economic order, because now we say, look, economic, alternative economics. No, economics is just a part of the life of the people. But the social order includes. The social order should be more important than the economic order. The economic order should be inside the social order. It would be adequate to it. But now what has happened with capitalism, that only the only thing that counts is economy. Why is economy? Because everything is scarce. Because if you don't have the money, you don't go any place. And you have the money, you have to sell and to buy. Whether you need this or you don't, you have to buy and to sell. But you have to go be on the capitalistic market, which is a market of equivalent. And it's not only for profit, you see, because profit, why not? I mean, interest is okay. We all have an interest in the things that we do, okay? So our problem, not so much the profit. Our problem is really the fact that economics includes the society and therefore destroys the social network and the people, solidarity. Okay. Why do I say so? First of all, because capitalistic order is in crisis. Financial crisis, economic crisis, political crisis, ecological crisis. And I don't have to be straight because we read this newspaper every day. I want to add 2 comments on this, and then I pass to another figure. And this is that this proposal has gained strength recently, even within the academic world. Given that the Nobel Prize for Economics in 2009 has been given to a woman, which is the first time that a woman gets the Nobel Prize for Economics. And this woman, the name of this woman is Elinor Ostrom, as you all know. And although Elinor Ostrom now comes from Indiana University, has an institute studying the commons. She has been studying the commons ever since the 70s. She's an old lady, older than I am now. And she was in India at the international seminar, which was held in January in Hyderabad, in the south, for a week seminar. Then I'll tell you about this later. So even within the academic world, because Nobel Prize is also, it's not the alternative society, it's the official society, has recognized the relevance of the commons, giving the Nobel Prize to a person who has said for the last 30, 40 years that the common property, the common use of certain resources can be more efficient, what she says, efficient, which is a bit dangerous, not more efficient anyway, in terms of sustainability, than the management of those resources either in the private sector or by the state. This is a completely new idea, which was refused in the West. For the last 3 centuries, there was capitalism won over the other system. So now, this idea that I put in my book, but many of us now are convinced, is supported, is sustained, is legitimized by a new opening in the academic world, which I think is important because you have to deal with reality, not only with ideas and with hopes. And the second comment I want to make is about this Fukushima nuclear plant. I already mentioned, I want to put too many words on it. I think that it should really, I don't know, if not now, when? I mean, the situation is clear. The situation is out of control. I have been in Chernobyl, personally, after the Chernobyl disaster. Europe was destroyed. So, the nuclear disaster, is Chernobyl, here is Russia. No, I don't want to say much. Russia?
No, Chernobyl was in Ukraine. Chernobyl. Do you remember Chernobyl? It was.
Tell me the name again, because I didn't hear.
It's situated not in
What's the
Russia,
name?
in Ukraine.
What's the name?
Your name?
My name?
Where you come from? What's the name of the city, of the village?
I am from Ukraine, Kiev.
Eh?
Ukraine. Kiev.
Ukraine, sure.
Yeah.
And by which town in Ukraine?
Kiev.
Oh, Kiev, the capital.
Yeah.
I didn't hear. I've been in Kiev as well, but not that time that I went to the
Now they wanted to point out that Chernobyl is in Ukraine, not Russia. So since one is Russian and the other is she was claiming that no, Chernobyl is my thing.
Okay, so this is the thesis I try to support in this talk review, but which I claim I sustain in the book and which I would like you to comment on at the end. So, since I have a thesis, I have to say what the commons are, at least try to define them. And this is the second, the other. Can we go on?
Yeah.
Okay, no. See, what are you doing? No. Subsistence commons, which are the same way as natural related commons, and then I'll explain subsistence, are hard to define, I say, in the figure, level, because they vary in time, space, and social context. I want you to underline these three words: time, space, and the social context, which is as important as time space. At least when I was in my first years of school, I only knew two variables: time and space. Then later on, when I read planning, I realized the social context was as important as time and space. There can be social context similar in different times, in different spaces, areas. So it's something which, okay. The strength of the commons, of naturally related commons, or subsistence commons, is exactly this one, to be flexible. In other words, to be self-organized. The people organize themselves. To be flexible, to be specific, to have specificity related to the resources of the place, to the culture of the people, to their possibilities, to their wish, to their possibilities. Flexible, which means that, in other words, their strength lay in the ability of communities. Communities shouldn't be understood as something closed. Community is a group of people, defined, then we'll see about. The ability of communities to adjust, okay? Like in the earthquake, you have to adjust, okay? To different situations. The commons provide goods and services which do not become commodities, and this is, I think, it is important, because if they become commodities, then resources become scarce. And if resources become scarce, then we build another Fukushima, another Chernobyl, because then the energy will never be enough. It seems that there is a big jump, but there isn't a big jump. The jump is, and we have to learn within ourselves to trace these relationships immediately, not to go on, you know, when I leave the light on, it's nothing. No, it is something. I have to check, put it off, check. Okay? So they provide goods and services which should not become commodities, to be exchanged on the market. I use the resources jointly, in other words, they build relationships, community relationships. Now, a great deal of our life holds because of relationships between ourselves. Without these relationships, we couldn't live, because people are not Robinson Crusoe. They don't live on an island, and they're not forced to talk to nobody. They have to document themselves and to help them. Solidarity is an extremely important concept. Again, Polanyi. So they use resources jointly, and they don't own those resources. They cannot use them. Why they don't own? Because in nature, nothing should be owned. In nature, everything belongs to everybody. What existed before should be left afterwards. You know, this idea of the future generations, which is quite relevant. which doesn't mean that you don't have to touch resources. The forest cannot remain as it was at the beginning. Certainly, the human intervention over nature changes, but this doesn't mean that it destroys it. It has to be used sustainably up to the point. And this is my next point. So, not the fact that those resources are used without having the property, so they cannot be sold, they cannot be traded on the market, so there is no private or public property, also means that the resources are used in a sustainable way, in the sense that if you live on something, you don't destroy it, because then your life is destroyed. Okay? They are communities with those resources, the management of those resources self-organized by the community. As I said, but I want to repeat, they are based on cooperation, not on competition. Competition is something, vertical competition is the hierarchy, it's destroying people. If I have to compete all the time with the others, you know, I'm sorry, my strength goes all in this idea of winning. He said, I don't have to win, I have to live, to enjoy life, to cooperate to the social common good, as they say. So basically, on cooperation, not on competition, remember that, as I said before, the contemporary economics or society is based on competition. Even the unions, which can't tell you, in order to be better off, people have to earn more money, and you have to conquer the shares of foreign markets. As if this were a good thing. It is not. Why should we starve our people and to go to conquer foreign markets? International trade should be limited, should have a limit. International trade is a very important question. Nobody wants to close the communities. International trade, international exchange, but it has to be limited and not to be the basis of the production. International market, goods that are sold, bought and sold, are built just for the international market. We don't need those goods and services. They are produced in order to be exchanged in the international market. And now I come to a point that you already pointed out, that this form of social organization promotes participation from below. In other words, real democracy. To say that we are for real democracy doesn't mean that we don't want the Montesquieu representative democracy. The two things have to be combined. Representative democracy is important, and nobody wants to do without. We are not going to destroy anything, but we want to combine. So we want to enter the market. We want to sit at the table of bargaining, having the power to choose, not buying. So civil society cannot be just civil society, something loose that sits at the table, and then the state and the market decide on their own. We want to have our say, and the decision has to be taken through a bargaining process among the three subjects. So we want to introduce a third subject on the society, which exists, but is not recognized. Introduce doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, that they're going to invent it, and not in a laboratory to create this third set. It exists, but it's not. They decide in spite of what we say. In this country, we have had so many referendums, and then they don't follow even the referendum. Okay. So, however, I have two comments. I want to point your attention to the concept of community, which is very controversial in the West, because it actually has been rejected up to very recent times, because it was identified with blood and tribal boundaries, which of course is not. A community is a group of people having the same interests for a period of time, perhaps, not forever, or over their natural resources, or for a certain period of time, or for a certain issue. But so there is a discussion about what community means, an important discussion. All the social movements which represent the backbone of the answer all throughout the world are the new forms of the communities. The second question is the common property. We already mentioned this, that the property of those resources is not private, not public, but common. But also common property is a very difficult concept to be even perceived in Europe or in the West, particularly by those countries which do not have any experience of common law. And the common law is not only the Anglo-Saxon common law. The common law in each country in Asia, in Africa, there are different common laws. So we, once again, Eurocentric, we think that these are just one common law, the Anglo-Saxon, but it is not the case. And it's a very complicated issue because you have to deal with so many different cultures. And each of them should have the possibility to decide for itself, which is not, because the West has imposed its own culture. So common property is a real problem, but studies by scholars show that the private property of resources, particularly of land, has prevailed for a very limited period of time in history, so it's relative and recent, while collective property is the original form of land tenure prevailing through the bulk of human history. So, well,
this is Rossi. This is Rossi theory, no? This is Paolo Grossi theory.
Sì, Paolo Grossi, the English historian.
Yeah. Italian.
Yeah. Okay. Because there isn't much in Western literature on commons, but there is some interest in the social, in the English historians of the English Revolution. The critique is much more on, not much ecological critique, the social critique, Marx itself. But indirectly, this critique of the social consequences of the social revolutions, both in England and in the world, the colonies, colonization, imperialism, does relate to the, not the common, the nature indirectly. So the English historians should be studied if one is interested in the commons. Okay. The next one, I'm going to talk on subsistence. Now, subsistence is another difficult word. As you realize, I'm trying to explain the words that I consider complicated, or at least that they are complicated for me, perhaps not for you, because we can talk about everything. So subsistence in the West, which is where I live, subsistence is considered a problem of a problem of the South, of the poor people, not of us, because the market gives us everything. If you ask the child, well, perhaps now it's changing the situation, where does milk come from? He'll tell you from the supermarket. He would say that from the cow, because he doesn't know. He's never been perhaps in the countryside. Now the situation changes a little bit, but there is a strong idea that the market, women have to want to work, therefore they have to shop very quickly. So, I stop coming from work, I stop at the supermarket and I buy everything. You don't buy anything because the supermarket shows you a tremendous amount of diversity of food, but those food is made of 4 or 5 substances, so it's not nutritious. So it doesn't help, doesn't keep you in good health. So now, should we wait for insurances to tell us that they pay high prices for cancer, for all this heart disease? I think we should realize what we are doing. In this country, I don't know in your countries, the percentage of private expenditure on food over total of public expenditure is 40%. After the Second World War, it was 35%. Then it went down, because people want to buy food at the lower possible cost, but they buy junk. Because what does it cost is okay. So subsistence or naturally related goods and services in Western culture are taken for granted. That they are supplied by the market. This is This conviction comes from 3 centuries of dominance of the capitalistic rule, which has conquered not only the markets, but our minds, our imagination, our perception, as Vandana Shiva points out very clearly. So we agree, there are acquiescence by the people, right? Although everybody knows that the market doesn't produce natural resources, those basic 4 elements, that the market is not able to allocate resources efficiently or in such a way as to grant everybody their share of resources. And this is their share of resources, which is the poor and the rich, because also the rich have to perspire. And if the poor don't perspire, the rich are little better off because their houses are made up there. But up to a point, because the tsunami is taking everybody, not only the poor. So those who are right. So the poor and the rich, nor is the market capable of avoiding the waste of natural resources, because it's the market that creates scarcity, because it wastes resources. 70% of the water into the agriculture is waste. It doesn't increase the production of food. It doesn't reduce those who are hungry. It's a poor waste, but we are used to it to let it go. Indeed, the point is there. Is the capitalist market that creates these shortages. Yeah, and those water shortage wouldn't exist if when water is managed by water communities, because water communities use techniques of rainwater collection, water conservation and utilization, coming from the traditional knowledge, traditional ways, not the new ways. The new ways are waste. When too much water comes down, it becomes a tsunami. When there is not enough water, there is desertification. But the same that I said for water, I could say for all the other 4 elements of empedocles. Let's take agriculture. A recent study by the United Nations rapporteur on food. It came out on March 8th, which was last week. This report is called, let me see how it's called. It is called, Agroecology and the Right to Food. These reports, you can see, you can look it up in the internet. It holds that agroecology, meaning traditional techniques of producing agriculture, food, would double the production of food in Africa in a period comprised between 3 and 10 years. The ecologists have also taken up this report and made comments. And it's extremely interesting, this report. I don't have the report, which was too long. I saw this from the New York Times. Sustainable farming can feed the world, question mark. And then it was on Tuesday, Olivia de Schutter, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food, presented a report entitled Agroecology and the Right to Food. Last Friday, meaning by lots in common, sustainable. Agroecology, he said, immediately helps small farmers who must be able to farm in ways that are less expensive and more productive. But it benefits all of us because it decelerates global warming. It decelerates global warming and ecological destruction. But you can read this. I mean, so the same that you can see traditional techniques to collect water, they are something similar in agriculture, they are something similar in energy, they're renewable energies, there is something similar in... Say something? No.
I'm here at Giovanna Ricoveri.
There is something similar in... Okay. Scusate, mi sono un po' persa.
Ok,
Okay, so, from the rich and the poor will not be granted by the market. And the conclusion at this point is that one should think about the fact that subsistence is a socially and environmentally determined concept. In other words, it varies through time. So, for a citizen of England or Europe at large, internet can also be part of subsistence because you become so used to it, you cannot do it now. Or public services, transportation services, or public school, or public water. But in a different area of the globe, where those services or those issues haven't been tackled yet, subsistence can be defined differently. Each population should have the right to define subsistence in its own way, okay? And we should be flexible enough to realize that differences are positive, not the negative. And therefore, if subsistence is socially and environmentally determined, this idea to divide subsistence commons as a problem of the South and the digital common as a problem of the North is wrong, and is also very dangerous because it creates a division between the North and the South. Now, the situation now is such that we are all at danger, so we should unite, not separate. Recognize the differences, respect them, and then try to unite to respond to the challenges, technological, political, and social challenges of the present situation, etc., crisis, etc. What is the time? Yeah. Do I to finish or want to stop? What do you say?
Finish. We can have a
Finish. Okay. We finish, and then we open the discussion. I'm going to go more quickly now. So, the next table, I call it the process of delegitimation. In other words, I want to say how did this all happen, and as a European, and also given that we talk in Europe, we also have to take into account the position of Europe, I feel that we have great responsibilities for what is happening now, but also in the past, because the past is probably more important than the present, because the present can be changed, the past cannot be changed. But the past is operating even now. The consequences of colonialism and imperialism are still there. So what happened, as you all know, but has to be said, that in the transition from the in Europe, in the transition from medieval times to modernity, which would be the 16th century up to the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is officially covers 70 years, but in fact it covers several centuries because the social processes are slow to realize. So in this change, I want to say cesura, cos'è una cesura? A cut between the past and the future.
Right.
The Industrial Revolution, in the Industrial Revolution was a tsunami, a social tsunami. What happened? It happened that England was the only country in the world that was able to navigate, to go on the ocean, because it was an island. At that time, there are other powers, let's say China, could have done the same jump, but only England made a jump. Which jump? This jump from the medieval to modernity. What it means? It means that England was able to get a surplus of food and resources and people to build an empire, because at that time technology didn't exist, wasn't so developed, and therefore no society had enough surplus to be able to take men and food to send them to conquer other worlds. But England was able to do so. Was able to do so because it had this ability to go, to build boats and to go on the sea. And so this is the triangle. England brought some stuff from England to Africa, took the black people, slaves, to America, the colonies, the plantation, sugar at first and then cotton, the slaves, and then went back to England. This is what the triangle from England to Africa, to America and back to England. This meant 20 million, probably more, young Africans brought to the United States, or not to the Americas at large, as slaves, and therefore a blow to Africa, from which Africa hasn't been able to get out yet, because Africa was emptied for generations. It's not only quantitative effect, and Africa lost its crowd, because slavery, our American slaves coming from Africa, had a productive function over there. And so they rebelled in time, through time. They became, they were able to free themselves, to push. But in Africa they weren't, because in Africa they went down. The young blood was taken away, and Africa remained at the pre-medieval stage. So Africa, but this is one effect of colonization. The other effect is that through time, ever since the 15th, 17th century, England and then Europe, because at the beginning was on England, then it was also France and Germany, Italy much later, which is not positive, just a reality. Leading shows. Okay, so I have imposed their models to work. In other words, through different politics, policy imposed to the South, we have tried, dismantle, destroy the possibility of people in other continents to develop their own way. In other words, to help themselves, to be self-organized, to, according to their culture, to their resources. Because one thing is agriculture in Europe, which had the temperate weather, and another thing is agriculture in the country, which is tropics. You have different lands. So to impose your models, cultural models, is to destroy the possibilities of development of those countries, development according to their own cultures, but also resources and the will. So the colonization, the intervention of Europe, the Industrial Revolution was the beginning of the present era, with the era which we still are in. And for this change, there was not only the economics which did it, but also the philosophers. The philosophers of those times, Hobson, even Galileo, said that nature had to be known, to be conquered, not to be used, not to be respected. So nature ceased to be considered sacred and was belated from the human horizon, to the point that people lost the perception of nature. In other words, nature is there. Who talks about nature? Nature, I mean, is eternal. We haven't done it, it's there. But it is there, but not for the capitalists, which use nature as inputs, a deposit of life resources, inputs from the industrial production. As if nature was dead. Nature is alive. Nature responds, has its own way. And nature doesn't really mind so much, because nature goes its way. If you build a road which cuts the course of the river, and that river takes a different way, all the people living there are at very difficulties, because nature doesn't take care of our needs. That goes its own way. The course of the river goes on, changes its direction, but continues. It is us who becomes submerged under the water, and that therefore we disappear. So we should realize that it is in our interest to respect nature, to understand what nature is all about. But since all was subdued to the profit, so the philosopher of the 16th, 17th century, the great philosopher, which you might say I started with great interest in, were actually responsible for this change. But history is history. You can change it. And another hand was given by the economists. The economists then, Adam Smith, you know, the father of economics, well, not some certainly studied economics, the great father of political economy. Actually, it's not a great father. The whole economics doesn't exist. People are not moved only by interest, economic interest, are moved also by feelings, by solidarity, by ideals, so it's the theory of comparative advantage is a disaster from the point of view of nature. So what happened in Europe at that time changed the course of history. I finished this table. And the conclusion, which is my last table, but it is not necessary to want to put it on. The conclusion is, can I have the last table? Please repeat it. There's 7. And there is another one. No. Okay. There are 2, but I lost them. Yeah. So I go back to where I started. I use this one as a memory. The return of the commons is a coded proposal to distinguish it from the reclamation of the commons. Many of you, certainly those who work on the commons, work on the reclamation of the commons, which is completely the right goal, it's a good goal, but it's not enough. The reclamation is the minimum you can ask. You want something more than reclamation. Reclamation is to get back what you have lost, which is taken away from you unduly, okay? But you want more than reclaiming. You want a return. It means to consider today, actually I want to start from here because I think I should be upside down. This proposal, the terms of the common, the historical necessity, I say, vis-a-vis the emerging features of capitalism in its present financial phase. We can all discuss this if you want to, which produces paper wealth. Paper. Finances create a wealth which is just paper, which has no basis, while destroys real wealth. A real wealth means goods and services, not so much the goods and services which the market produces, because behind this economy has 3 layers: the financial layers, the real layer, goods and services, and real. The real level, the last one, is that related to nature. Natural resources are the base for production. Now, there should be a proportion among these 3 layers. The financial market and the first layer of the financial market goes up to proportion with the other 2 layers, then we have the crisis which we had in the United States and in the world worldwide, in the sense that the real economy cannot sustain that level of financial operations, okay? But also the second layer, which is the real economy, market economy, goods and services, if it produces more goods and services than the nature can support, then also that second layer gets into crisis. And natural resources are not fixed, completely fixed. Some resources are renewable, but certainly are limited. Not scarce, but limited. Therefore, I say that when I say producing paper wealth, I mean a wealth which doesn't, financial wealth, okay? Destroy real wealth, both that goods and services produced on the second layer and nature, which is the other layer. Evidence shows that at the beginning of the 3rd millennium, which is this one, the profit frontier, I have nothing against profit, as I said at the beginning, but I said that the profit frontier has moved into natural resources. Capital is not scarce anymore. What is scarce is natural capital, in other words, natural resources, which mainstream economists call natural capital, which is wrong because they use natural capital. Okay, it's a convenient. But capital is abundant, is too much. What is scarce is nature. It's water, it's land, it's energy to sustain this level of. The public frontier has moved into natural resources because it's the only area direction in which you can make profits. People cannot eat more than, cannot use more goods that they need. I mean, you can have 3 cars, but not 10 cars. Okay, so which are gift of nature. And this is another important concept from my point. The resources are a gift of nature, but are also the result of human work. Because a bridge is not made of capital, financial capital. It's made by work. A bridge is built by people who also die to bridge the bridge or the tunnel or whatever, a school. Okay, so human work and also ingenuity. Okay, people and therefore local communities, because when a group of people build a railway or a tunnel or a bridge, there is a community of people working together also for a long period. That becomes a community in that period. Okay? So the wealth, the real wealth is not only by nature but also by accumulation of infrastructure, schools, made by the people. Then the collective, therefore, it exists a collective wealth, nature plus what we have built. Okay, even enterprises, even a steel mill, if it exists, why should we destroy? We should use it, and to put and make that steel to a good use, not to produce arms, but to produce goods that are useful for the welfare of the people. Okay, so a collective wealth exists. The multinationals and financial capital, which is often the same, try to appropriate by any means, even through the war or the tsunami, because nature helps once in a while. It is therefore an imperative for local communities to resist this trend. The resist is reclamation, but I say it's more. And reclaim the commons, wealth for social movements and to act as political subjects. In other words, to go beyond the reclamation, and to present themselves, the empowerment of the civil society as a third subject, to be recognized by law, to have the sovereignty to decide on issues they deal with, either their natural resources which are under their feet, or there is a construction related to their territory. Therefore, communities can decide on the local issues. Why local issues? Because they are those issues which they relate to their life, their direct life. And this is local democracy. This is local democracy, participatory democracy. This is the third subject. This is not okay. At this point, I go back. The return of the commons, which, as I have called the proposal, was on reclamation of it. It requires us to consider today's environmental movements, or also social movements, as the updated version of the local communities, both of the medieval times in Europe, or of the forests in India, or in other countries in the south. Because as people are different, white and black, young and old, different. So the common, everything is, the diversity is the strength, is the vitality. Without diversity, there is only death. So also the communities are checked back. So the updated version of local community of the past, as instances that represent and take care of the needs of the people, the real people of their time, but also as a world movement, favoring political change and reform. In other words, what I want you to discuss, I want to point out is that in spite of all the difficulties that we live, we were discussing about Palestine before, but there is a world movement going on. they are not always connected. I don't think that the internet is enough. But if the internet is important, North Africa probably shows this, so there is a world movement. People move, react. They try not only to retain, but to come to the forefront of the political arena. And this gives us strength and force. Doesn't need to get them in touch. It's difficult to get in touch on those mates, you know. We have to know that everybody is moving up in that direction because the system is unsustainable. Okay, so at the end, the very end, which is the last one, which you don't find, but you probably can find over there, right? Last one, and then two. Okay, to sum up, we can say that the subsistence commons, or nature-related commons, are an institution, at the beginning they say the social order. I now say institution. When the institution is, can be connotated, okay, that has survived through time in spite of the enclosure to which they, the subsistence commons, have been exposed over the past several centuries. And that even now, because even now this process goes on all the time, they embody inalienable human rights, spaces of self-organizing, that satisfy the need of social relations embedded in human nature. In brief, they express a mode of social organization alternative to that of the Homo economicus as theorized in mainstream economics. It's finished.
Okay, thank you.
Now, so
Do you have question? Yeah.
I have about like
Just
three things that I would like.
I come closer because I'm free about it.
Okay, good. One of them is that this idea that we're alienated from like the production process, I think is a huge issue. The fact that we go to the stores and we don't really have kind of idea of where the products we're buying originate from, and so it creates this disconnect from nature, and I think it's a huge problem also in urban settings. Also, I'm a little bit concerned about the idea of community because, like, for example, I'm from the Bay Area in California, so San Francisco area.
Santa Cruz?
Yeah, actually I went to school.
I went to Santa Cruz for a year.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
I went to university. Yeah.
That's my university.
Great. Great place.
Yeah. However, I think like it's really difficult to establish a community that's not only cohesive but maintained because it's a very, especially in urban settings, it's a very individualistic society. So I'm a little bit concerned with how there can be this move towards sustaining the commons when people are more preoccupied with their own lives rather than contributing to something of a greater good. So maybe it could be like a theoretical commons, like the idea is there, but the action is done individually. So it wouldn't be more of like a collective action as we see in rural settings, but more of an individual action, but for a common good. Third, also is like economics or capitalism is very much ingrained in our lives. And Carl Polanyi wrote a lot about in the Great Transformation, the commodification of different things that maybe are not naturally we don't see as commodities, but they've transformed our lives. So in the beginning, you made a comment about decommodifying essentially what we see as like goods we sell in the market. How would you propose to do that when?
Should I answer sooner or later?
As you wish. There are other questions?
I try to do it quickly, however, because the risk is that I talk all the time. So the questions are basically trying to answer immediately. Now, the first one is two questions. The first one seems to be that you agree with me. There wasn't any answer. Okay. You underline the fact. No, you underline. I mean, you agree that in fact we are by goods which are not, which we believe that they are like, we're going to the supermarket to see so many different choices, but in fact it's always the same. Because so all agree on this, it's a problem. So, and I know answer, I just we agree on this. Second question is about, you said about
community. Community and individual society.
I agree. But I want to answer the second question to the third at the same time. I agree what you said. But, you know, we have to be very flexible and go on in this. In this country, there is an author who has more than anybody else worked on the retail, he calls it retailarizzare, to bring down, to territorialize, to bring to the. In other words, what we have discussed, and we should, but not now, is the conversion problem, the ecological and social conversion. In other words, all that you said stays within the framework of the project of transformation, which is slow, which will be bottom-up, instead. And as linked as it is extremely important because it shows the direction to change, to the commodification, right? So I agree with you, but and particularly in the United States, which I would say that it's easier than everywhere else because there is so much, and at the same time it's more difficult because it's more difficult because, and this is my last comment, I don't agree on the one thing you said, that people are individualistic. People are individualistic, they behave as individuals, they are interest in a terrible way, very eager, and until they see possibility. If they are governed, those who govern are the first one to get advantage of the system. Why should the people sacrifice themselves? But in the period of crisis, there was a child in the First, Second World War. I saw people cooperating when I was in a beautiful way. Palestine, people do cooperate when they see that there is a goal, that there is a collective movement. So since this hasn't happened yet, as you said, you have to work more on collective actions to go around, to make it easier, and then, but not starting from the point that people are individualistic, because this is a way to look down at people. People are beautiful. They are this place, this treated so badly that they react. I sometimes even understand that those job bonds, which is horrible, because it's incredible what is happening. Our Prime Minister, what he says, you know what I mean? So try to be realistic, to do as much as you can. Don't try to reach the moon. It's too much. In Caligula one, but then in the well. Okay, another one.
Please tell us something more about. You said that the idea about subsistence and the problem for the material commons is just a problem for southern countries, while for northern countries the problem is about non-material commons. And you said that this is not this idea is wrong and dangerous. Can you explain this?
It is dangerous because what we need now is unity, not division. But if you say that the subsistence problems go with the south, because they are poor, they are poor. We are poor that have all these possibilities, okay? So we have to unite. If we respect the others, the diversity, then we shouldn't say this. Subsistence is also our problem. We eat so terribly. Look how much cancer we have. All the women my age, a bit younger, now have problems with breast cancer. Why? The pills. Or a heart attack. Or Chernobyl. The children from Chernobyl, the children of those who were alive at Chernobyl time come to Italy every year to be treated because they're still having leukemia. So we are poor, not they. Therefore, subsistence has to be redefined, to find unity, not division, to respect them, as women want to be respected. They are different from men, but they are equal, not equal. They have the same value. With the specificity, you know. So the same with subsistence. I hate this idea that we have to deal with digital commons and they have to deal with subsisting commons. As if subsistence was defined once and forever. No. Subsistence is a social term. Therefore, as I said, public schools is a right for us, in California as well. But in the forest, it's not. It would be ridiculous to think of it. But they exist in different forms because children get together and try to learn. I was in India recently, as I said, and I saw even in the more degraded places, I saw a group of children, dirty, no shoes, all with the books in their hands, reading. So, I mean, from my sensitivity, I would prefer that I'm sure they would be clean. But the point that they read books is so important because education is the basis of the response. So I think it's a very, very important idea of this subsistence. You know, when you talk of commons in Italy, can you find those commons? They have status for a statute for all the commons. No, the internet is one thing, and the water is another thing. So they have two different statutes. But the subsistence helps you to understand why not to make this jam, which doesn't have to distinguish in order to operate. Is it, do you agree or not enough? Not so much.
No, I think it's an interesting idea, but at the same time, I think that if we take Italy and, for example, Haiti, the difference between those two countries is huge. Concerning
those two countries, what happens?
There is a huge difference between the problems we are trying to.
And then,
so there are some places where the problem of food and arriving of food is much more important than here. So of course there are some.
No, you're wrong. No, I was in Haiti. I lived there for a month. No, but the problem of Haiti is to be free. Haiti has never been free. You know why? Because Haiti tried the revolution with the blacks. Yeah. And the United States were terrified. At the time of slavery in the United States, they were terrified by the experience of this guy whose name now escapes me. And that guy was not a good guy. He made agreements with the enemies. Power is terrible for everyone. But that guy, who has a name here, the airport has his name. Louvrier is a French name. You remember his name? It's a French name. No, he was this French dominion, so he's a French name. Anyway, he became the head of the republic. The Americans were close. The United States. They were terrified by the idea that the blacks in their power, and so they crashed. So in this crash, the Louvrier, something similar. The black Republican president wasn't any better than the other powers because when the fight is so terrible, power destroys every value. But at the same time, he tried to free Haiti. He didn't succeed, and ever since, there is something very incredible. Something incredible. This is, I don't remember this is Haiti. No, this is the Hispaniola. This is the island of Hispaniola. Okay? The Dominican Republic in Haiti. The Dominican Republic filled with trees, beautiful trees, nature. Here, there isn't a tree. It's terrifying. The nature in this has been destroyed. Duvalier, the French. What happened is that the United States and the other great power, England, France, not only the United States, but the United States was closer, and there were the blacks. So did all that they could to destroy this country. So this country is destroyed, doesn't exist. There is not a state. The state, I say that the state has has to be put down and counteract with the third political subject. But the state is important because if the state there is no law, then the rule of the jungle. In this country there is no state, there is no public schools, there is no roads. Not now, there weren't 10 years ago when I went, before so what do you expect from those people? Those people are lost. I mean, you know, so what they say, what they say now, those people have to be left alone. Everybody knows how to do things. Nobody's stupid. So, you know, a country, a population, a community has the right to decide its own destiny and to make its mistakes, as we do in our life. You know, your parents can help you up to a point, then you become. So this is what how can you compare it with Italy? It would be very unfair. I don't. So I don't, you know. I just have to learn the lesson that in Haiti can explode also the malaria. 1,000 people died. Okay. And you see what I mean? And you're a woman. Think of the different gender. What do women want? Empowerment. They want to be free, not to aid men and to have the same career, to have the same power. They want to be recognized, but to be recognized, nobody. Power has to be conquered. The women have to conquer their own space in society. Okay, and then to pretend that the others recognize it. But then first they have to gain it. And to gain it needs strength, intelligence. And women have this together. The threat of women is not always close. Sometimes so please don't confront me with people. It's not fair.
But I just want.
Because
I think
Palestine.
I stand with Laura's point of view in the priority of the Haitian movement and the Italian movement. I think the Italian community, the priority in the Italian community, and the vision of the commons.
I don't understand.
I think what she meant is the priority for each community. I think the Haitian community have a priority which is maybe a little bit in the sustainability. It's a little bit not concrete yet. Maybe because they are looking for their priorities are different than the Italians. Now Italians, I don't know if that's your point. For example, they are looking at their vision to food or for the first important thing for any human being is much more different than the Italians.
But what does it mean? You observe the fact, okay. Then tell me the meaning of this observation, because otherwise I don't know what to say.
For sure, how they're looking for the commons and creating the collective.
No. I wouldn't go to Haiti to speak about the commons. No, I wouldn't. Because people are starving. We don't talk about it, you know. So even what you say has to be changed according to the people around you.
But for me, the point is how the developing countries may have this kind of collective, let's say, division of the commons.
No, say again the question.
Okay, now the commons start mostly in the developed countries. This is how I understand it, the vision, how we want to treat the commons, something like that. But for sure, in the developing countries, there's also something will come. I mean, by the time they will take the regime of the commons, maybe from the
I don't understand. From what I understand, I will answer this, but maybe now I was in India, and I saw what the commons are there. They don't talk of commons. They live it. They don't talk about what they live every day. Okay? So those who talk to the commons in India are people like us. university people or NGOs or whatever. But the real people, first of all, they weren't even in the conference, because the conference had a fee of entrance which was €400 for the lower income. A higher bracket income or much higher. So obviously no forest person can come can pay for it. Doesn't have, they have probably they have an year income of €1 or €2. So this is actually taken into account. We're discussing one ourselves. I met some of those people later on in New Delhi. We went to visit them, but they were so they don't talk to the commons because they live. So we talk to the commons because in this country, in the north, people think that they have disappeared. People think here that the commons don't exist. They exist. They are all around us. They are communities. They are a group of people. We don't recognize them as such. And if we don't react in the right direction, obviously we will have negative consequences every day. We have to react, and not everything can be done at the same time. So in the South, the situation is completely different. They struggle for survival. We don't strike for survival. In fact, we should, because actually our life is at risk. But we don't realize it. Our life is at risk. When they tell you that this is a high percentage of breast cancer for women of a certain generation due to the pills, contraceptives that they have taken, advised by doctors, but in America as well, not now anymore probably, but in a certain period in the past, the contraceptive was given the pills, and the pills change the organic of the body, and unfortunately creates cancer. Okay, so the situation varies a lot according to different angles of the earth. But we should see our different struggles as part of the same movement. Because in fact we all need more security, more power, more friendship, more, I didn't mention war, but war is obviously quite international. Because war is a consequence of those differences. Of those lack of antagonism. People are not antagonists everywhere. War is here. I don't know if I were the sake of the fear struggle in Italy. Perhaps you are living in Torino or not. I fear demonstrations.
About the war.
Okay, so they are fighting both for. Obviously, casting on the world cannot stand for another 20 million scars, even if they are. If they run through renewable energy, where do you put those cars? There's not enough space. So the world has to change. The question is whether we are going to be at the head of the movement or whether someone else is going to do it. If we want to be the protagonists, it seems we go to school, we have some responsibility. Right? Because society pays for us instruction, education. So the responsibility is to at least to explain what's happening, not necessarily to be the person chooses what wants to say, to explain what really happens underneath. So these differences are to be understood and managed and respected. Is it what you said? What?
So you have been so critic against the market system, but I wonder about the possibility.
No, market system, the capitalistic market.
Okay, but about the not, it's a relationship of exclusion between the commons and the capitalist system.
Yes.
But can we really use the force of capitalism to preserve commons?
The question is if we can use.
Yeah.
If we can use what? The strength, you said?
To preserve.
The strength of the capital? Yeah. Well, the capitalism has no strength. Capitalism has much ideology. It doesn't have strength. This is the point. Capitalism is a system which uses a great deal of ideology to enrich a bunch of people to the detriment of the majority. And as you know, the distribution of income is more and more skewed. The 10%, 50 people earn as much as 50% of the world population. So in a world where the population is growing, unless you take drastic stand on birth contraception, you have to realize that the system is unsustainable. So what the strength of capitalism? None. The strength of capitalism is none. It's not exploitation of natural resources of people. Capitalism is very much down now. So now the question which would be perhaps, which I could consider would be how we transform capitalism. This is the point, because I don't think that we have to.
So what do you feel about this idea, Obama idea of green economies?
I just wrote a piece on green economy recently. I think that it's a great idea, as long as it doesn't help profit to become higher and the rich to become more rich and the poor to become more poor. So, in order for the green economy, therefore, for a different economy to be useful for everybody, rich and poor, north and south, in different ways, because not everybody wants the same thing. It should be a move, a change, not only in energy, renewable energy, which is necessary but is not enough. Should be a reduction in the, let's say, in the consumption of energy altogether, because energy, the greatest energy of the world is people's energy. We all have energy. And the world stays after because of people's energy, not just the material. Energy, as you know, is all around. I'm not a physician, and I regret this because I don't understand it clearly. But when I think that energy is in this room and now it moves, are you a physician?
No, I just really like this kind of conversation.
No, the idea that it's energy all over, it makes me a bit, Okay, so we have to transform the system, not to clash. And I think it's the best way to transform it. And we have to teach ourselves, first of all, and then to teach the others. Yeah, but also to think that time is not so long, because what happened in Japan shows that time is short, right? Yeah. I don't know. Okay, what is coming from Russia?
From Russia? Maybe a very, very general question, because all the time we have a discussion about civil regulation of commons, and all the time we have a discussion what type of regime, so state property, common property, and so on and so forth, will be better, will be suitable to solve the problem of commons. As I understood, you believe in people, really?
Yes.
Yeah, because for me, I don't believe.
You don't?
I don't believe in people, absolutely. I believe in state, and that's yes. But I think you believe in people, so from your point of view, what regime will be the best solution of the problem?
Regime? What do you mean by regime?
I mean legal regulation. Who will be an owner of commons? Is it possible or not?
I understand. Yeah. Okay. The answer is this. My answer is this: that if you don't believe in people, you will find a solution to the problem. Because obviously, if you don't believe in people, you have to have some does it for you. In other words, I mean, it's very, when you are a child, you ask your mother to help you to eat, and when you grow up, you decide, slowly, quickly, you become autonomous, and you decide for yourself. And so it's with societies. When they're very young, they make the help, but then so it is because people have a great deal of creativity, of energy, of positive will. Because they survive. Nature is much more stronger. Take illness, when you are ill, I mean, medicines can do something, but if you don't want to the body heals by itself, slowly, if it wants, if it's capable to. Okay? So, in other words, self-organization, autonomy is the best, is the most relevant factor of social organization. So a world made of responsible communities, so group of people, is the best. Now, how then would we organize international exchange and mediation? Because there are areas which are rich resources, areas which are poor, so there should be some even. This can be seen later on. What we have to work on now is to realize that this system that we have is destructive, and therefore we have to refuse it. But to refuse it, you have to believe in people. Otherwise, you're lost. And I think what you said is very common, and it's probably the most important factor in the present days, because people see so much bribery, so much injustice, that they become skeptical. I understand, I'm too old to be skeptical, I have to be positive, because I don't have enough time. But I understand your skepticism, I understand it very well, but try to fight it, because it's not a positive way. I believe you think in your own capabilities of doing things, right? So if you believe in yourself, why shouldn't the others? Everybody's able, to decide to give a contribution. Nowadays it isn't this way, but also because people are very, people are, don't react, also because it's very comfortable to rely on others, You just go there, turn, and the light is there, and the water is there, and the pan is there, and you have to reach it.
About local communities, okay, I agree that maybe proper to local communities will be a good decision, but at the same time, I think that in each local community there is a people who govern, and I think we have no. Really, I'm sorry, but I don't believe in democracy in people because now we have no. What does it mean, democracy? It means that there is a local group of people, and each people participate very actively in governance of resources and so on. But how do you think? Is it possible now that each member of society will participate actively in common deal?
No, not each.
That's why I'm afraid that if we will give a property to local governors, we will have only one governor for these people who will use it like he or she wants for his or her own benefit. So it could be one problem of it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, but I want to point out that you're thinking of power in terms of the existing models, in other words, of the state, as we know it now, national, local, whatever, that doesn't make much of a difference. And more they are corrupt. Okay? So if you start all over again and put a different then you can come to different conclusions. It's a problem if the solution in this direction will arrive here, but to go the other way will arrive at a different point. So what I invite you to do is to try to trace a different trajectory in order to reach a different solution, which the only thing I can give you is the older solution. Who was the leader of the group? Who was the old person? Sapiens? Say, the head of the group. But probably nowadays it won't be this way. It's difficult to think that we believe in the old people. Okay, so I don't propose you this solution of the past. I think that the future is always different. I think it's different not only from this, but it's also different from the other one. Because the other one is not corruption. That's impossible. The one has to survive. Well, if he doesn't survive, at least I want to work for the alternative.
Yeah, maybe proper to local communities, but with very, very strong control from the state. With the strong control from the state.
But the state is corrupt.
Yes, but for example, if in the local community there is a very powerful man, nobody can force it. So
you got my point.
Yeah.
If at the local level there were responsible people for the communities who put enough pressure on the central government have to change. You're absolutely right. Wouldn't be the same. So if you put things in moving, then everything changes. So that's in play. So of course, you cannot see all the moves, however, because life has to go in the course of the time as you move along. But absolutely, the action and reactions. Yes, I agree. There is not much to invent. There is a different meaning to what we have. Yeah. Great. We got a solution to that problem. We solved everything on paper. What about you? You're the last one. You have to say something. Yeah.
Okay, but the thing which I actually got from when we were talking with Professor Rico, that when he was asking about this capitalism, and the thing which I get from here, of course, is talk about this state control and not believing people. It's capitalism in its form, in its present form. It's giving a real solution to it, because all of the time we are talking about that humans that believe in people, they should come up and they should go in this thing. I mean, like they should be given power. But this capitalism that we have, whether it's Western imposed, all of those Americans or European, whatever we say about this, I mean, having this capitalism being released, I mean, if we really see the longevity, those people will never, those local communities will never get this.
Those people will never
get this chance to govern their own resources due to this capitalism.
I don't understand what's the point.
So you're saying that it's necessary to think in a capitalist way in order to reclaim.
Yeah, I mean, if the system remains like this capitalist system, we are in capitalist economy. Due to this ideology, that you have said capitalistic ideology, that you have said that capitalism is an ideology. Yeah.
Has become.
Yeah, has become. Due to this ideology, the empowerment of those commons, yeah, I don't see it being possible. Do you?
Why?
Okay, I get your point. So inside of this,
because of this ideology, I think we have to destroy this ideology and to come up with something really different.
So I think I understand. Yeah. Now, my answer is the following. Evidently, you think that ideology is eternal. Ideologies are built on consensus, not only on strength or arms. So, the capitalistic has reigned for 3 centuries the world. It is directed the direction of the world, and has had success in certain parts of the world, and has been able to survive so long because the world was divided. So in the north there were successes. There were working class, working but having a salary, buying a car and buying a house, and better off. In the south, things were going worse and worse, but the south didn't have a voice and had to. We follow me? So, but the south had to accept the conditions because there was colonialism, there were. Now, capital, which is not all negative, capitalism has become an ideology, but capital was also has two phases, as every reality. Was also created. Up to a point, the capitalism has been created. Now it's destructive, but it has been created. So now that the capital has made possible for really free circulation of the people, and the blacks have arrived in Italy for a shortcut, okay, so that they can come over. Given to the capital in Belgium, transportations, right? So depositing, now capitalism has become unable to sustain itself because it destroys even itself.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a time for us and for the ideology to mention, to deconstruct that ideology, not to deconstruct reconstruct with the flags over the capital regime's war. I don't want the war. To reconstruct in the mind of the people, making clear that other ways are possible, that we can react, that we can stand up to, and why? Because you say the strength, you say capitalism, not capitalism, but the people who own this. We don't want to kill anybody. Everybody will die from nature, is okay. Just wait and we have to act. This is the answer. This is it. Okay? So, these ideologies are not determined. Ideology hold as long as the others, the people, the majority, accept them or legitimize them. Because if these ideologies are legitimized, probably because there were positive interest behind it. Until the point that the workers could get the salary, could say enough to live and house and have holidays, they supported capitalism, but now they don't anymore. How can you live with 1,000 euro a year in Italy? And this is what they earn, not to talk of the South. The situation is changing.
So we have to deconstruct this ideology too.
Exactly.
But
to deconstruct an ideology means to make analysis of the real situation, social analysis, country by country, area by area, as you like. I mean, nobody can do everything, just peace. Then see what other analysis are done altogether, to denounce the problems, and to make it clear that an alternative is possible. Because the majority of people don't go to school, don't have the time to think as much as we do to spend the morning to discuss matters ourselves, right? So we have to indicate their way. Not necessarily what we say is correct, but we have to speak out. Publish a book, talk to the people, let's say next time we have to go June 12 for the referendum on nuclear energy. You don't go, they imagine. Vote because it's a public water. We have to go there. It's a little, it's to be done, you see what I mean? And everybody does what they can. Votes on the referendum. And then the construction comes this way. But the beginning is that don't think that an ideology is eternal. Only God is eternal.
Yeah? Okay.
Sì? Va bene così?
Thank you for your interesting talk.